You're listening to Win-Win, an entrepreneurial community with your host, Ben Wolf.
And welcome to Win-Win, an entrepreneurial community. I am your host, faithful as always. You're going to learn in this episode today how to, about a set of house rules to make your visionary integrator or CEO, COO relationship rock. With that, I just ask you guys for this commercial break to pause this podcast or this video, subscribe, leave a review, 5 stars preferably, wherever it is that you're listening to this, follow, like, whatever it is that they let you do on whatever platform you're watching or listening to this. I'll definitely help me, help the show, and get to more people by doing that. So please do so. With that, I want to get to introducing our guests today. 2 guests, 2 weeks in a row we're going to be doing this. It's been a long time before that since we had done it. But our guest today, very, very special. Not often we get to do this. We have to get both the visionary and the integrator, CEO and the COO, or I'm not sure if that's technically the titles they use, but you get the idea, from a digital marketing and SEO firm called Rocket Clicks. They are actually the sponsor of the upcoming Entrepreneurial Operating System EOS conference in April. I look forward to meeting them in person, and you can find out more about them and what they do with their firm at rocketclicks.com. That's spelled exactly how it sounds. So with that, I give you Tyler Dolph and Nicole Mennicke. How are y'all doing?
Awesome, Ben. Thank you so much for this opportunity. It's great to see you again.
Yes, good to see you. And with that, I guess I'll just ask, and either one of you could start, just to give me a quick 2-minute background, where you came from, how you came to be doing what you're doing in Rocket Clicks, but really we're not even going to be focusing per se on that marketing aspect as much as your own visionary integrator relationship. But anyway, how did you get from wherever you were, stuff that's maybe people can't see on LinkedIn?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Ben, Nicole, and I have the unique privilege of leading an incredible group of very talented digital marketers here at Rocket Clicks. And we've had a fun journey navigating the EOS waters in our own business and in implementing that. And I am fortunate to have Nicole on our team. She's been with Rocket Clicks since before we even had a name. And I know she has some background on how this whole relationship started.
Yeah, it's when you said, "Hey, give us a 2-minute on you." Give some time how you introduced EOS, and then, well, how did we come to this house rules? It's all very.
You might not even need 2 minutes to cover all of it. Maybe 90 seconds. You could probably. It doesn't sound like much is involved in that.
Yeah, it's all really intertwined, and I think we all have the story, right? We all have the story of the dysfunctional relationship or the really functional relationship, and really. So for me, Tyler alluded to, I started before we even had a name, and I built, helped build this agency primarily focused on the PPC side, the digital advertising side, and what over the years there was a lot of leadership changing and a lot of shifting and a lot of changing of direction, and so as I took on more, I was director of the PPC department. We had, I think, 3 or 4 different presidents. So with each president brought a new direction that we're going into. And so around the time Tyler actually joined, we really started embarking on the EOS journey. And so it became really clear of that roles, that visionary and integrator role. And
what's EOS? What does that mean? For those who are not familiar.
Yeah, the entrepreneurial operating system, it simplifies business. You don't have to spend your time doing a 50-page business plan, but it really asks you to look at the most important elements of your business and get those in a really strong place, and it adds clarity and accountability through the organization.
I'll say that just from the CEO lens, EOS is a framework that allows hyperactive leaders to put a structure in place to keep everything moving in the right direction while we as CEOs think of the greatest ideas each and every day, and making sure that those ideas have a place to live and flourish.
I do compare some of the, I'm an integrator myself and a fractional integrator. I do compare some of the visionaries I work with to herding like a bag of cats.
Oh yeah.
Trying to.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
No,
Go
yeah.
off.
And so I think being vulnerable with you, I think me being on the agency, within the agency for 8 years, Tyler comes walking in, and all of a sudden it's becoming clear that Tyler is now going to be the named visionary and integrator. And we
Mhm.
definitely had some conflict in opinion. To be totally fair, I actually didn't want to hire him. I actually said, you know what? I don't think we need this right now. I don't think we need this right now. And so Tyler and I started so of course, I'm coming from a place of skepticism. Oh, it's just another president. Don't worry, he'll be gone in another year or so. Really, we don't need, I'll just keep going my course. I'll keep pushing the business in that direction. And I think, we really looked at it, and there was half implementation of EOS, which is always a nightmare, right? Because EOS is never good for every company, but really in its purest form is good for every company, to really implement and lean into. And so I really think, as Tyler and I were navigating this brand new relationship, it's not like we built the agency together and we're trying to now pick it up
Right,
together
that's
and
unusual.
run.
That's interesting. It's also unusual that the visionary came in like after the integrator. That's
Yeah.
very unusual. I mean, EOS is maybe the only other like well-known example where, where Kelly Knight helped pick Mark O'Donnell as, as the visionary.
It posed unique challenges because Nicole had done a phenomenal job of running Rocket Clicks and had processes and procedures in place that I either thought were great or didn't agree with, and navigating being a young new leader to a young thriving organization posed opportunities for conflict and conversation. And the entire organization of Rocket Clicks owes Nicole a debt of gratitude for putting up with all of this, and me included. But we found that we had to make it work, because we both loved the people here. We loved our clients. And we said, okay, well, what can we do as individuals, as the leaders of this company? And we looked at it as akin to a family, right? If mom and dad are fighting at the top, that's never going to work for everyone along with us. And so we said, well, let's figure it out. It's very much our personalities to run towards the fire and create solves.
Yeah. So we have this story, and I think every single really close leadership relationship has it. We have this make or break moment in our career. We're both in Ireland. We're visiting a client. We're in the most beautiful, it was so beautiful. It was wonderful, but we were miserable. We were like passive aggressively fighting with each other, playing this tug of war. And like at the end of the trip, we're sitting in the airport and we just look at each other like, we got to figure this out or don't, right? We have to figure out a way to not just coexist, but have our world come together and lean into what makes us who we are, which is an incredibly far way integrator and an incredibly far the other side visionary. And how do we figure it out? And that's where the house rules really came from.
Well, obviously perfect segue, and really just appreciate y'all's candor and and vulnerability and honesty with not making it look to the outside world like, oh, we were always perfect and everything's we got it all under control, everything's always been that way. So let's take some of these house rules one by one.
I'll just, Ben, before we jump into the house rules, I think that what you said is akin to why we were able to be successful. EOS is a framework, like I said before. Having the opportunity to be vulnerable and to be transparent allows us to have the relationship that we had today. If we both were hard-headed and we said, well, I'm right and it is what it is, well, then it never would have worked. So again, the house rules are a framework, just like EOS, but it's the vulnerability and the candidness that allows it to really flourish.
Right. No, I definitely see how that could be. I mean, it's kind of like the foundation under which these house rules, which are like the building, kind of rests, and couldn't thrive otherwise. And and it's just that open and honest that EOS always talks about. But I guess if you didn't have the quality or the ability to do that, or to at least be able to do that, you wouldn't have been able to make it work.
For sure.
So let's go. People want to know, what are these house rules? They want to maybe imitate them or learn from them. So let's start with the first one. What is it?
Yeah, so we grouped all 10 rules. So there's 10 rules, and we
10,
grouped them
okay.
into 4
Was
pillars.
wondering.
Yeah. If you know me, it had to be an even number and they had to be themed. So
Right.
the
With all the 10 commandments of Rocket.
yes. So the first 2 rules really fall under communication tools. And the first one's one of my favorites, Brene Brown, she's like my life goal. She has something called the shitty first draft. And we use this religiously throughout the entire company, actually now. It's become very familiar across the team. And basically it's saying, when you said that, what did I actually hear? Not the words that came out of your mouth, but how am I interpreting this? And sometimes you let that shitty first draft or crummy first draft sit in this space in your head and you're unable to hear another word afterwards. And so if there's ever anything that we're talking about and we feel that hook in your stomach, like something's wrong here, we stop and say, okay, what's your shitty first draft on that? And say, okay, what I'm hearing you say. So for example, Tyler came to me.
I would love to. I would love an example. This is like interesting.
So Tyler came to me and said, are you sure you should be doing that? And I immediately in my head said, you are challenging me as a leader, as a time manager, at prioritizing the right thing for the team. I'm putting the company at jeopardy because I'm putting things ahead of so of course your brain goes wild of what you think they meant. And so after I was able to share this shitty first draft, Tyler then looked at me and said, oh my gosh, I was saying, do you need my help? Should we get somebody else involved? Is there another resource that we can bring in? So it wasn't challenging my decision making. It was saying, how can I help support you? And so we did this very poorly the first 2 years until we had a shared vocabulary. And that now we just say, hey, permission to share the SFD, right? Permission to share. And then we say, okay, let's get it out of the way. And then we can move forward and have a productive conversation.
I think the beauty of the shitty first draft is it empowers people to, without fear of resentment or backlash, to actually say what's on their mind, to actually communicate in a way that is transparent, open, and vulnerable, without the normal fear of, am I going to be judged by actually saying what I think?
Tyler, do you have a story from the Visionaries? Because I could find it easier to relate to Nicole in this story. But do you have a story from the visionary perspective of something that Nicole said where you were like, hey, what's the SFD? Or she asks you, hey, what was the SFD of what you just heard me say?
Nothing specific.
We can come back to it.
It feels like that's our everyday, put the pressure really.
What?
It feels like it's our everyday. I'm fortunate to be able to work with Nicole on an everyday basis. And we've developed such a tight relationship that our entire communication structure is built on shitty first draft. So we don't have to say it anymore. We can just communicate in a way that's really transparent and vulnerable. But early on,
you mean what do you mean is you mean she'll skip the, hey, what were you doing, and just go straight to the,
this is what I'm hearing.
Explanation of
what I'm hearing you say right now, or what I'm feeling you're saying right now.
Right. The listener might say that, right? Just to say it.
But it's saying it on the front end, especially in new relationships or when you're building those relationships, giving the permission to use the shitty first draft, again, empowers that vulnerability.
I could see how that would be, because usually you don't want to share what you're put in the first person. Usually I wouldn't share what I'm hearing, or what I'm hearing are the implications of what you just said, because then I feel like you're going to think I'm extreme, or you're going to think I'm flying off the handle or going overboard or something. I don't know what, but you're going to judge me based on, I don't know, based on what I say that I'm hearing.
And the thing is, with it's
really
less
powerful.
accusatory, right? It's more a conversation. Hey, this is how I'm feeling. I don't hear you are meaning this. This is how I'm interpreting it. So it gives the other person the opportunity to say, whoa, let's take a step back. Part of this is true. This part is not. And then we can really dig into why.
Just tying back to your question about examples, I'm realizing other visionaries sometimes need to talk out their thoughts. I have trouble formulating a solid thought in my head and then explaining it in a very clear manner.
For sure.
I will sometimes need to just talk through it. And
it's not your final draft.
That's it.
You
so
say
giving
something.
people permission to say, hey, just hear me out. And then giving her the permission to say, here's what I heard, allows us to really get on the same page quickly, and then take the next step, because ultimately what we're doing and we're having our conversations, it's solving a problem or moving an objective forward. So we can talk through that faster, then we can move those things further faster.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It also works at home, by the way, and it works in my marriage all the time.
Right. Right.
Mm.
That is true. And I'm also inclined to maybe misread things that a visionary would say in a similar way, where I view it as like, well, I wouldn't say something unless I've decided that's what I think.
Exactly.
But if you're talking to somebody who I'm just sharing with you, version 3 out of 27 of what I'm thinking, then, it doesn't have to be looked at that like as my judgment or my opinion, quote unquote, with a capital letter O for opinion or something. Rule number two.
Which really rolls in beautiful to number 2. And this is one of our favorites. It is scale of 1 to care. And so this especially when I was 1 to care, scale of 1 to care. And so I told you we were doing this weird tug of war when I was talking about in Ireland and all that. We wanted to be the decision maker and do this. And what we said is, okay, we are going to have a scale system. And when we have to make a difficult decision or there's a certain idea that we put on the table, we say scale of 1 to care, I am an 8. Scale of 1 to care, I am a 2. And so all of a sudden we see how firmly we're passionately behind something. And that goes into the multiple drafts. Tyler could say scale of 1 to care, I'm like a 2 because I haven't thought this through yet, but I think it's a good idea. Then I know that he's not super committed to it or is running it down the tape somewhere else. But if, hey, deck polish, something that we did in a presentation is an 8 or a 9, I'm like, is this something that I want to push back on? Do I care enough to push back? And so it's defining where our care level is anytime we come to a difficult decision.
And it's really allowed us to alleviate unnecessary arguments, because sometimes in our role, we'll feel like we'll need to be the devil's advocate. Like we'll need to just communicate the other side of an issue because we rely on each other for that. But utilizing a scale of 1 to care, she can come to me with like, hey, I really want to get new computers for the team. Where are you at on this? And I could say, I'm a 2, run with it. And then I'm out of it. I get to reprioritize my time, knowing that I don't have to think about this. And she's now empowered to run with that decision because she knows where I stand.
Right. That seems really helpful. What are the other 3 pillars?
All right. The other 3 pillars, we have healthy tension. So finding ways for healthy tension. The other 3 pillars, EOS component alignment, showing love, and education. So it's educating ourselves.
What do you want to do next?
We'll do education. Education. So the top 2 it's read together and then take time to get to know each other. So the read together, we are doing every assessment, right? So the rule 3, we are doing all the assessments. We know each other's, the Myers-Briggs, the Enneagram, any way for us to understand each other a little bit better. All of the Rocket Fuel, Patrick Lencioni books, we really find the crystallizer index. We find the more that we are having a shared vocabulary.
Read together?
Yeah, read together.
You're reading the same books at the same times or doing the same assessment at the same time, so you could, I don't know, discuss it or see what you want to do with that information. Like I just read Netflix's No Rules book, and how does that, what do we like from that? And you both are thinking about the same things.
Yep.
We find that in order to have such a strong relationship, we need to be on the same page about a lot of things, not just the things in our business, but the way that we think and the reason why we think certain things. So both in taking these assessments together and discussing them, we learn more about each other, even tiny little things that help us understand, like, oh, that's why she reacted the way she did, or that's why I'm as crazy as I am. And then also the books just take it to another personalized level where we can relate or not relate and discuss. And it's just a relationship building tool so that we can continue to be as aligned as possible and move our business forward.
Well, I would love to hear, if you have any examples or stories on that. If you're thinking about it, I just had one that came to mind where I mentioned that book, Netflix, No Rules. I had an integrator a visionary I was working with who suggested that book, and was going through that that month where he was obsessed with that book, and everything they talked about, and So because I almost immediately read it or started reading it when I heard him, suggesting it. I got it on Audible. I just, went ahead and started. So, and then he would say things in meetings, or we were talking about things, and I could see that that's where it was coming from. And so I was able to be a lot better communicating or seeing where it was coming from, or how else we could approach something or whatever, just from the fact that I had in my mind that I was reading the same thing that he was reading.
Mm-hmm. I was reading a book with the Female Integrator Mastermind organization. We do some peer reading together, and I was reading a book, the Make the Noise Go Away. And so I read 2 pages. I said, Tyler, buy this. We're reading this together. And it's a non-EOS visionary integrator relationship. And I think with reading together, you explore some of those like shared vocabulary, those phrases, those coined phrases that now we can talk to each other. So the whole Make the Noise Go Away is, for a visionary, sometimes there's so much noise in their head they can't go through. So an integrator's job is really to clear some of that noise out of the visionary's mind so they can focus on their visionary role. And so going through that text together, we're like, yes, that totally resonates with me, or no, that doesn't resonate with me.
Very cool. What's the other education one?
The other one is the take time to get to know each other. And so Tyler can talk about all the fun stuff he wants to do, like I'll let you tell that. But the one that we did, I made this crazy tool where I listed 15 motivators, and we had to independently assess them 1 through 15 of what motivates us as people. Is it financial? Is it personal pride? Is it ambition? And then I put them together. And Tyler and we laughed because the biggest points of friction in our relationship was because our motivators were polar opposite.
Really?
Yeah. And so it was cool because then we could say, hey, this is a really high recognition is a really high motivator for me, less for him. And realizing that those were it's kind of like the love language theory. We weren't answering their own motivators and love language in order to really push forward.
It's so important as a leader of a team and as a member of a team to understand the people you are playing with, the people that you work with on a daily basis, so that you can communicate in a way that helps them stay motivated, that helps them continue to push the ball down the road. And little experiments and experiences like that just continue to help us better understand each other and understand our team. So all the things we're talking about, it's not just Nicole and I, we utilize with our team out here. And it's helped in every possible way, from retention to growth. And it's been rewarding for everyone to sort of buy into this idea that relationships do matter. And the more you work on them, the more benefit you get from them.
Right. It's all like, yeah, I mean, everything you're saying is totally, I guess, intuitive. It's just like, why don't we do it? Just because we didn't do it before, so we're not doing it now. Like,
prioritizing it.
It's good ideas. What about EOS components?
Yep, the three rules around the EOS component. The first one is just committing to meeting pulse. The second COVID hit earlier this year, Tyler and I got on the phone and we were panicking, but we said, we are not going to miss a single meeting. Can we commit through the rest of this year? Because we know that whenever we miss a meeting, when things get busy, that's when him and I get completely out of sync and we start fighting with like nitpicking at each other. And so that whole commitment to the meeting pulse and just making it unmovable has been so important to us.
Mm-hmm.
It's sometimes so easy to deprioritize. Like, are you kidding? You want to have L10 today? Like the country just shut down.
The house is on fire.
The house is on fire. And in those moments, it's like, wait, the L10 is the only thing we can do, because it's going to allow us to unpack some of these issues as opposed to just freaking out about them.
Yeah.
And I think even the meeting before the meeting too. So obviously the chats with the leadership team have been pretty sizable, pretty cosmic this last year. And Tyler and I got into a habit about just doing a quick 15-minute sync, make sure we're on the same page, make sure we know SFDs, make sure we have one to cares down. So when we go in, it doesn't look like we aren't aligned. We realize who's going to run what.
Right. All right. What's next on the EOS components? I'm like getting excited. We're like able to cover some ground here. I thought we were going to like get like caught in like 1 or 2, but you guys are so efficient.
Oh. Absolutely. This one we giggled about a lot. Don't use visionary integrator as a crutch. We hear so often in the EOS community, oh, that's just my visionary. Oh, that's just my integrator. And it's always synonymous with like integrators are like the killer of dreams, right? We just just ruin everyone's day. And visionary is, let me take you into the sky, but follow through, not so great. And so what Tyler and I said is there's no excuses. We just have to take accountability, and I need to show up in a more creative, risk-friendly way, and he needs to show up in a more disciplined follow-through way when we need each other to do that, and not using those definitions as a crutch.
Tyler, do you have any departments besides being visionary?
Marketing.
Oh, so you have
which is been fun, but also has required me to.
Because that's partly when it comes up for me, is when the visionary is also sitting in a seat on the leadership team.
At the end,
or even lower than that, or even lower than even in a seat, a salesman, even under the head of sales. You know, like.
I think at the end of the day, we are responsible for leading this company, right? And that means a lot of different things. And if we pigeonhole ourselves into a specific role too deeply, then we're not doing what's best for Rocket Clicks. And so at the end of the day, yes, I am considered our visionary and Nicole is considered our integrator, but we have to make that role our own, and we have to be able to be okay with stepping outside of our selves or not using it as a crutch so that we can continue to push things forward.
Right. That's amazing. Let's do one more if you have time.
Yep, 7. So number 7 is we've been clearly define the accountability chart box. We wanted to out of the box pull out EOS best practice for what a visionary box and an integrator box, but we realized there's a couple roles like Tyler with culture or me with like client relationships. They're just not strength zones. Like I'm really passionate about company culture, and Tyler has the best relationships with our clients. So what we started to do, it took us a while, but we swapped some of those roles and responsibilities, and we've never been happier because we're working, even though it doesn't fall in line perfectly with that traditional integrator visionary box,
right.
We know where those strengths lie.
Right. So you're saying, right, like typically, I think the official, EOS version of the accountability chart has like culture under the visionary. And what's and the client relations you're saying would more be like account management, which would be somebody under the integrator.
Yeah.
Something like that. Or sales, which would be under the integrator.
Oh, P&L. So P&L reporting. So Tyler has direct line of sight with owner. And so Tyler actually does a lot more of the P&L ownership. We worked at it together, but we realized we had to really flip that if it was going to work with our relationship.
Right. Right. Yeah. To work to your strengths. I assume you did Clifton Strengths Finder or Gallup or whatever it's called.
Yes.
One of the many.
Giving yourself permission to float outside of those boxes if it aligns with your strengths,
right,
and betters the relationship.
Right. That's amazing. So what's next what's next on the horizon for Rocket Clicks? Why'd you guys decide to do the EOS conference sponsorship? I don't know, what does the future look like for you guys?
Like I said, we've been really lucky to experience great growth during the last few years. And we believe it's a lot to do with our relationships here internally, the culture that Nicole has built, but also EOS as a platform and as a system has provided a great framework for our growth. We've been sponsors of the EOS conference for the last 2 years. And what we're finding is that
this will be my first one. I didn't realize that. Sorry.
No worries.
Yeah.
Talking with like-minded individuals and working with other EOS businesses, we've found so many efficiencies in the work that Rocket Clicks does, but also the benefit that it provides EOS companies. Because we have a shared language, because we have a shared vision as to what we all want our companies to be, we can run faster and speak clearer than other agencies who don't understand EOS. And so we have a number of clients that practice EOS and that we've met at the EOS conference. And as a result, we're developing a solution just for EOS companies because of the shared language.
They're our favorite partners, hands down. There's accountability, there's data, there's a great meeting pulse already established. Like that's just part of their everyday life. And so it's like, yeah, we don't have to ever chase an EOS partner down for stuff because they have the right people in the right seat, delivering the right work. It's just really a dream for us working with EOS companies.
Right. And you have it's like, well, where does what we do fit in? Which one of your measurables, which one of your rocks does that fit into? What's this last thing? What's this product that you're talking about briefly that's special for EOS companies?
I apologize, product's the wrong word. It's more of just a mindset and a solution where we say, okay, well, when we work with an EOS company, we know that they're looking at measurables. We know that they have a scorecard. So we're already thinking proactively about what are those scorecard metrics? What is our meeting pulse going to look like as it relates to our relationship and marketing? How does their marketing seat fit in with our team? And so if we can come to the table when we know that a client is practicing EOS with some of those already predefined, that allows the relationship to kick off that much stronger.
Mm-hmm. And we're actually able to plug into EOS solutions like an accountability chart box. We love traction tools, but we've worked with clients in both 90.0 and traction tools. And so it's just cool. We're able to really plug into the EOS system and understand what they need from a week-to-week basis and deliver that.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, look, I really enjoy this conversation. I think that it's particularly nice because I appreciate you guys' candor, vulnerability, and some of these extremely useful tools and house rules that you shared. Obviously, people can go to rocketclicks.com. Again, digital marketing, SEO, everything from, I guess, like first contact to to when they come into your system as a lead. If I'm getting that right, correct me if I'm wrong. And so you can reach out to them at rocketclicks.com. And, obviously I'm sure they would love to hear from you, any other visionaries or integrators out there. And really, really appreciate you coming on and appreciate the great conversation.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Absolutely.
All right. And thank you guys. And we'll see everybody else on the other side. Thanks.
You're listening to Win Win, an entrepreneurial community with your host, Ben Wolf.